politicians or foreign agents warned from interfering with military assets procurement. PH and BN to use own logos for Kelantan state election. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. Happy Father's Day. I'm Jessica Lee. Now, politicians or foreign agents have been reminded not to get involved in decisions regarding the procurement of military assets. Now, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim said professional decisions when it comes to acquiring assets such as aircraft, vessels, weapons and others must be made by the armed forces. The Prime Minister said the current state where equipment is concerned had not reached the levels of neighbouring countries as all assets were still in use. This was due to his previous policy of not handing over the acquisition of assets to the military, ending up in a lot of leakages as a result of the high commissions involved.
Saya kata arahan baru, nak beli pesawat, nak beli kapal, tank, senapang, biar ambil keputusan profesional dari bahagian masing-masing. Orang politik jangan campur, ejen-ejen luar jangan campur, dan bila diputuskan, kita bincang dengan Kementerian Kewangan dari segi kos dan kita runding direct di antara dengan kerajaan-kerajaan berkenaan. Kerana yang bocor, commission itu terlalu banyak.
Datuk Seri Anwar said this at a meet and greet session with the Royal Malaysian Air Force fraternity at the TUDM base in Butterworth. In a separate matter, the Prime Minister refuted claims by certain parties that he tried to apply the Islamic concept excessively in his administration. Now, this following his decision to expand the role of the Department of Islamic Development Malaysia, or JAKIM. Datuk Seri Anwar said the accusations thrown at him by a small number of non-Muslims showed the group did not understand the importance of educating Muslims about the true concept of the religion.
Saya mau JAKIM itu bukan bicara soal agama sahaja, bukan soal aspek-aspek perundangan Islam. JAKIM sekarang di bawah pentadbiran saya sebagai Perdana Menteri dan Kerajaan Perpaduan diperluaskan tugas, bicara soal ekonomi, lihat program digital, lihat soal kurikulum pendidikan. Tanggungjawab itu lebih luas supaya nilai Islam itu diterapkan. Dan ini juga ditentang oleh pihak yang tidak faham. Yang di kalangan ada yang kelompok kecil bukan Islam menulis keskasar. Dia kata Anwar sekarang ini mempamerkan sikap Islamis dia yang kukuh, yang cuba diselindungi selama ini dengan mengarahkan JAKIM menguasai semua sistem.
The Premier explained that if Muslims in this country do not get a true understanding of Islamic teachings, it is feared that it may result in clashes between communities in this country. Datuk Seri Anwar was speaking at the Diamond Jubilee celebration of Sekolah Menengah Agama Nada Hasanah Melele in Kodiang, Kedah. The distribution of seats between Barisan Nasional BN and Pakatan Harapan PH for the impending elections in 6 states has reached 90%. BN Deputy Chairman Datuk Seri Muhammad Hassan said there were 1 or 2 with overlapping seats in 6 states involved and required a decision from the Presidential Council of both coalitions. He explained the overlapping issue was due to everyone's sense of winning those seats, adding that the party is leaving it to the Presidential Council to decide in order to look at it from a wider perspective. Datuk Seri Muhammad said for the seats that have been finalised, each party can start making preparations for the state polls. The upcoming polls will involve 6 states, namely Negeri Sembilan, Selangor, Penang, Kelantan, Terengganu and Kedah. Meanwhile, PH and BN will use their own logos for the Kelantan state elections. According to Terengganu and Kelantan PKR State Council Chairman Rasmi, Both coalitions have also have decided not to contest against each other during the elections. He said the seat allocations for Kelantan was done rather quickly, adding that the negotiations were conducted in a good atmosphere.
Di Terengganu pun sebenarnya itu masih di dalam perbincangan. Tapi macam di Kelantan kita akan pakai logo Pakatan Harapan. Mana BN dan kita pakai logo PH lah. Tapi tidak bertembung dari segi kerusi.
The Kelantan State Assembly will be dissolved on the 22nd of June to pave the way for state elections, which will see PAS and the PHBN alliance vying for the state's 45 state constituencies. Still to come, nurses' uniform issue should not be blown out of proportion. The public higher education institutions, or IPTAs, throughout the country must carry out a risk assessment for any organisation of social activities, including concerts. Now, Higher Education Minister Datuk Sri Muhammad Khalid Nordin said the move was to ensure that the concerts carried out did not tarnish the image of public universities.
Akhir-akhir ini, oleh kerana ada insiden-insiden yang mungkin mencemarkan sedikit pengisian dalam konsert itu, maka saya telah minta universiti supaya lebih berhati-hati, supaya pihak universiti pastikan dalam nak menganjurkan konsert itu ada dilakukan penilaian risiko.
The minister was responding to the recent concert held in a university in Terengganu. In a separate development, he said he would ask the National Higher Education Fund, or PTPTN, to re-evaluate the type or amount of loan that will be levied when the hybrid learning system and flexible schedule are introduced.
Kalau dia nak anjal, dia boleh mohon anjal, tetapi dia hanya meliputi beberapa subjek yang sesuai dilakukan anjal, bukannya semua. Ada dalam 90 jenis bidang saja, bukan semua.
Earlier, Angkatan Mahasiswa Universiti Malaya President Nur Nazira Abdullah suggested that IPTA fees be reduced by 50% if the hybrid learning system and flexible timetables are introduced in all public universities. Now, the Congress of Union of Employees in the Public and Civil Services, or QPACS, is of the view that the issue related to uniforms donned by female nurses in government hospitals is an isolated case and should not be blown out of proportion. Its President, Dato' Adnan Mat, said instead what needs to be given priority now is the welfare of these nurses. In a statement, Dato' Adnan said the nurses' uniforms are in accordance with the dress code of the profession, and it is based on guidelines that are constantly being improved. According to him, the issue of tight clothes was more about individuals and did not reflect all nurses, adding that it was the responsibility of the head of department to issue a warning and ensure that the ethics of each staff member comply with the set guidelines. In the meantime, Dato' Adnan said the QPACS had received feedback stating that the quality of cloth provided to nurses in the Peninsula, Sabah and Sarawak is not the same, even though they were from the same ministry. It was hoped that the Health Ministry can ensure the cloth provided is of high quality and standardized for all states. The Malaysia Agricultural Research and Development Institute, or MARDI, is actively conducting research in an effort to produce more coffee variants to meet demand following the shortage of local coffee beans. Now, Deputy Agriculture and Food Security Minister Chan Fung Hin said the shortage can now be considered critical because local coffee production only meets about 3% of domestic demand. He said the country's coffee production at a global level is only at a rate of 0.16%, while the rate of coffee imports to cover domestic consumption is as much as 97%.
Permintaan kopi dalam negara memang semakin meningkat daripada 600,000 kilo satu tahun dijangka akan naik ke 800,000 kilo satu tahun. Cuma masalah dia kita bergantung 97% daripada bin yang import masuk. So kalau nak memajukan industri kopi negara ini kita harus menghasilkan klon sendiri supaya kita dapat meningkatkan yang klon untuk penggunaan untuk dalam negara ini.
He was met after officiating Mardi's new Liberica coffee clones and innovation launching ceremony at Mardi Kluang. Now, Chan said the production of 3 new Liberica coffee clones by Mardi is expected to be able to produce coffee products that have high competitiveness and are expected to have good sales. Up next on a foreign front, 41 people hacked and burned to death in a school raid. The militants linked to the Daesh group hacked and burned 41 students to death in western Uganda, in the country's worst such attack in over a decade. Investigators said dormitories were set alight and students cut down with knives in a brutal late-night assault by Allied Democratic Forces, or ADF, which is one of the deadliest groups active in Democratic Republic of Congo's strife-torn east. Uganda People's Defence Forces, or UPDF spokesman Felix Kula Yigye in a statement said 41 bodies have been discovered and sent to Buwera Hospital mortuary. Sylvester Maposi, the town council mayor, recognition, while other students were still unaccounted for. Survivor Mumbere Edgar Dido, 16, said the attackers arrived at his dormitory carrying machetes and guns and opened fire from outside, sending everyone diving under their beds. They continued to shoot through the windows and then set fire to the dormitories. Meanwhile, 8 people were injured while 6 others were kidnapped and taken by the attackers towards Virunga National Park. The resident commissioner for Kasese, Joe Walusimbi, said that 39 of the deceased were confirmed to be students at the school. It is the deadliest attack in Uganda since twin bombings in Kampala in 2010 killed 76 in a strike claimed by the Somalia-based Al-Shabaab group. Iran and Saudi Arabia took a further step Saturday to seal their reconciliation as Riyadh's top diplomat made a landmark visit to the Islamic Republic following a 7-year rupture. Now, Saudi Foreign Minister Faisal bin Farhan held talks with his Iranian counterpart Hossein Amir Abdullahian, focusing on regional security. Sunni Muslim power Saudi Arabia severed relations with Shia-led Iran in 2016 after its embassy in Tehran and consulate in the northwestern city of Mashhad were attacked during protests over Riyadh's execution of Shia cleric Nimr al-Nimr. But the two countries agreed in March to mend ties and reopen their respective embassies in a Chinese-brokered deal that has shifted regional relations. On June 6th, Iran reopened its embassy and consulate in Saudi Arabia, and Prince Faisal said the kingdom is expected to reopen its diplomatic mission in Tehran soon. Prince Faisal was the first Saudi foreign minister to visit Iran since 2006, when the late Saudi top diplomat Prince Saudi Al Faisal made a trip to Tehran. Now, since restoring ties, Saudi Arabia has pushed for a peace deal with Iran-backed Houthi rebels and also championed the return last month of key Iran allies Syria to the Arab fold. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrived in China today on the highest-level trip by a U.S. official in nearly 5 years. Now, neither side expects breakthroughs during Blinken's 2-day visit, with the world's 2 largest economies at odds on an array of issues, from trade to technology to regional security. But the two countries have increasingly voiced tensions between the countries. Now, Blinken is the first top U.S. diplomat to visit Beijing since a brief stop in 2018 by his predecessor, Mike Pompeo, who later championed all-out confrontation with China in the final years of Donald Trump's presidency. Now, Uruguay will melt down a bronze eagle found on a sunken World War II-era German destroyer off its coast 13 years ago and recast it as a dove of peace. Uruguayan President Luis Lacalle said the 2-meter-tall bird, weighing 350 kilograms with a Nazi swastika gripped in his talons, will be turned into a symbol of peace and union. The bronze statue used to be adorned in Admiral Graf Spee, a battleship involved in one of the first naval skirmishes of World War II. The Graf Spee's captain, Hans Langsdorff, scuttled the battleship, one of the Third Reich's largest, on December 17, 1939, following the Battle of the River Plate. The sculpture was found in 2006 after a 10-year hunt in the River Plate of Montevideo. In 2019, a court ruled that the sculpture must be sold, with half the proceeds going to the government and half to the salvage team. This 50-50 split had been stipulated in an agreement the salvagers had signed with the Uruguayan Navy in 2004. The treasure hunters later filed suit claiming the government reneged on that deal. Now, last year, Uruguay Supreme Court ruled the eagle was the property of the state. Lacalle said Uruguayan artist Pablo Achugari has been chosen to make the peace dove, which is expected to be completed in November. Up next, Aaron Chia and So Wee Yik book spot in Indonesian Open final. And we start off with development in Indonesian Open. Men's national badminton pair Aaron Chia and So Wee Yik continue their winning momentum and booked a spot in the final last night after beating locals Hope Pramudia Kusuma Wardana and Yeremia Rambitan. The second seeds faced immense pressure as thousands of spectators came to support their representatives. The Malaysian pair, ranked number 3 in the BWF World Ranking, lost the first game 12-21 due to numerous unforced errors. However, they clawed their way back to win the second game 23-21 before moving into top gear in the third to walk out with a 21-13 victory in 57 minutes. The win over the pair was the third for Aaron and Wee Yik after having also beaten them in the 2023 Malaysia Masters and 2022 Indonesian Open. Aaron Wee Yik will take on India's Satwik Sairaj Rankireddy and Chirag Shetty, the tournament's 7th seeds, in the final today. And moving on to another success story, the National Youth Netball squad successfully defended their title at the 2023 Asian Youth Netball Championship when they beat Singapore 49-45 in the final in Jeonju, South Korea yesterday. Their victory also assured them of a slot in the 2025 Netball World Youth Cup in Gibraltar. The second-place Singapore and third-place Sri Lanka will also be joining them there as fellow representatives of Asia. Youth and Sports Minister Hannah Yeoh congratulated the junior team for their victory in the championships. Malaysia had previously won the 2019 Asian Youth Netball Championship in Kashima, Japan, when they beat Singapore 57-48. However, they missed out on the chance to play in the Netball World Cup 2021 in Fiji as it was cancelled due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Malaysia has also won the Asian Youth Netball Championships 5 consecutive times in 2004, 2006, 2008, 2010 and 2013, while emerging runners-up in 2015 and 2017. Now, the Youth and Sports Ministry, or KBS, will be meeting with the Road to Gold Committee this Monday to discuss on athletes' requirements and requests. Its Minister Hannah Yeoh said the ministry will look into the matter in detail to ensure the success of national athletes in their search for gold medals in the Olympic Games. She added all requests from athletes, including from the country's ace track cyclist Datuk Muhammad Azizul Hasni Awang, will be discussed during the meeting on Monday.
Datuk Azizul merupakan aset kepada Malaysia dan saya pasti Jawatan Kuasa Road to Go akan mempertimbangkan permintaan beliau untuk memastikan beliau sedia untuk ke Olimpik Paris nanti. Pencapaian beliau di Asia, peringkat Asia memang cukup bagus dan walaupun beliau telah melalui pembedahan tetapi beliau bangkit dengan laju dan saya percaya usaha keras beliau.
Previously, national contingent's chef de mission to the 2024 Paris Olympics Games, Dato' Hamidin Muhammad Amin, gave his assurance that all requests from athletes involved in the Road to Gold program would be brought to the attention of the Youth and Sports Minister for consideration. In football news, Tottenham Hotspur completed the permanent signing of Swedish winger Dejan Kulusevski from Juventus yesterday on a 5-year contract until 2028. Kulusevski, 23, joined the Premier League side from the Serie A club on an 18-month loan in January last year with an option to buy for €35 million. British media reported a reduced £25 million fee had been agreed upon. Kulusevski scored with an assist on his first league start for Spurs, a 3-2 victory over Manchester City in February 2022, and made 37 appearances last season. During his loan spell, Kulusevski scored 7 goals in 57 appearances and helped Spurs secure Champions League qualification in 2021-2022. He has scored twice in 29 games for Sweden, and in December 2022, he was awarded the Gold Bollen for the best Swedish male player of the year. Tottenham last week appointed Australian former Celtic coach Ange Postecoglou as their new manager. On to tennis, German Jan-Lennart Struff defeated Pole Hubert Hurkacz, the number 4 seed, 3-6, 6-3, 6-3 to reach the final of the Stuttgart Open. Now, this will be Struff's third ATP Tour final. He has lost both his previous finals. Struff and Hurkacz had never played each other on tour before, only in the Davis Cup in 2016 when the German won in 3 sets. The third seed will now take on Francis Tiafoe in the final, who he has never faced on grass before. In 2019, Struff lost to him 6-3, 6-4 on hard court in Antwerp. In 2020, Struff won in 5 sets at Roland Garros. The 33-year-old German won against Chinese Ji Zhenjiang 6-1, 6-4, American Tommy Paul, the number 5 seed, 7-6, 7-6, and Frenchman Richard Gasquet 6-4, 7-5 earlier in the tournament. Earlier, Tiafoe reached his first tour-level grass final after sending off Martin Fucsovics 6-3, 7-6. Tiafoe, who saved 6 set points in a second set tiebreak, secured his win in 1 hour and 37 minutes. The American defeated Czech Jiří Lehecka 7-6, 6-4 and Italian Lorenzo Musetti 6-7, 7-6, 6-2 ahead of his victory against Fucsovics. In F1 news, Max Verstappen put his Red Bull on pole position for the Canadian Grand Prix in Montreal after heavy rain shook up qualifying on Saturday. It was an unpredictable and wild afternoon of racing at a rain-swept circuit Gilles Villeneuve as the teams rolled the dice, switching from rain tyres to slicks as track conditions changed. With a bit of gamble and luck, Germany's Nico Hülkenberg managed to place his Haas alongside the Dutchman on the front row, with Fernando Alonso the third fastest for Aston Martin. Lewis Hamilton, a 7-time winner in Canada, will line up fourth with his Mercedes teammate George Russell fifth. The pole in a time of 1 minute, 25.858 seconds was the 25th of Verstappen's career. Verstappen started from pole last year and held off Ferrari's hard-charging Carlos Sainz for what was then his 26th career win. Now, fast forward 1 year and Verstappen, with another victory on Sunday, can bring his career total to 41, matching the late Brazilian great Ayrton Senna's haul. Red Bull has dominated this season's, winning all 7 races, Verstappen taking 5 to open up a 53-point gap at the top of the driver's standings, ahead of teammate Sergio Perez, who has won the other 2. But it was far from a perfect day for Red Bull, as Perez's problems continued to mount, failing for the 3rd consecutive race to make it out of Q2, and will start well down the grid in 12th. In our final story, Pramac Racing's Jorge Martin scorched to his 2nd sprint win of the MotoGP season at the German Grand Prix on Saturday to move up to 2nd in the World Championship standings, while Ducati's world champion Francesco Bagnaia finished 2nd. Now, Martin took the checkered flag 2.468 seconds ahead of Bagnaia, denying the Italian a 4th sprint win of the season, while Red Bull's KTM's Jack Miller finished 3rd. Bagnaia started well after taking pole earlier on Saturday, but was drawn into an early battle with Miller, with Martin taking advantage of the pair's tussle to sneak into the lead. Now, Martin, who started on the 2nd row, quickly moved up with the fastest lap early on, and by the end of the 4th lap, the charging Spaniard had taken the lead. There was no stopping him once he had cleared roads ahead of him as he turned on the afterburners, opening up a sizable gap over Bagnaia and crossing the finish line well ahead of the chasing pack for his 5th straight podium finish. In the last lap of the race, Pramac Racing's Johan Zarco and Red Bull's KTM's Brad Binder collided while jostling for 5th position. MotoGP said no further action would be taken after reviewing the incident, with the Frenchman finishing ahead of the Australian. Yamaha's Fabio Quartararo, the 2021 world champion, ended in 13th. And that's it for updates at noon. In our leading story, politicians or foreign agents warned from interfering with military assets procurement. Do join us again tonight at 8:30 p.m. for more news. We leave you now with a clip of Britain's King Charles' first official birthday celebration as sovereign. Once again, I'm Jessica Lee. Happy Father's Day. Malaysia Madani, tekad perpaduan penuhi harapan.
Of moments where you'll think, yeah, we